Most travelers don't realize that hotels can impact the environment or help restore it. What if sustainable wasn't a trend, but the new form of luxury? Come with us as we discover the future of sustainable travel and hospitality. This is Green Lux. Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning back in to the Conscious Check-In. We are here in person at the ranch at Laguna Beach with Kurt Bjorkman.
Yes.
Did I say that right?
You got it perfect.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
thanks.
felt
Yeah.
myself practicing.
Yeah. It's just like it, spelled, exactly like it sounds.
What is the heritage?
Swedish.
Swedish.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So Kurt, you are the COO here at the ranch. This is a incredible property.
Well,
We've got
thanks.
so much to talk about.
Yes.
Thank you for making time.
Glad to be here.
I am a sustainability nerd. I'm not going to call you a nerd.
I'm nerd me out. I'm all nerd. Yep. Two nerds in a pod right here.
Awesome. And there's something else we have in common.
Okay.
We both worked on cruise ships.
We did. Yes.
We did.
Now, I don't think I knew you worked on cruise ships.
Well, I originally reached out on LinkedIn,
That's
and I
right.
think I
That's
found
right.
that commonality,
Yeah.
which you don't
Yeah.
always see.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
was excited to see that.
And for those of you who don't know, working on cruise ships is a very unique experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think it solidifies you as being in hospitality or crushing you.
Kurt, I actually have said before, I think I could be the president of the United States.
Yeah, you can do that.
Because
You can do anything.
I felt like it was crushing me.
If you can muster 300 drunk passengers up to a deck for lifeboat drill,
yes.
then you can do anything.
Lifeboat drill. Oh my gosh. So I wanted to start this out because I wanted to ask you, but you're already peppering it in. What is one thing about working on ships that you don't think anyone else would know?
Well, there's so much out there right now. They've done some shows. I always thought they should do a reality show about cruise ships. And they've tried,
Yes.
but I've spoken to producers who said it's actually too
Messy.
So it is really a world on the sea.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is there. And you have like a dozen different nationalities all living together. And you have, I think what people don't know is that there is a hierarchy, which is kind of an unfortunate hierarchy in a way, right? Because you have, I was fortunate crew staff wise to in a cabin with a porthole looking out over the ocean and the sunshine, where most of the staff is below deck, tween deck. And so they're in darkness, shared bathrooms, 6 people to a room, working sometimes 16-hour shifts and hot swapping beds. So when you're on a cruise ship, be very kind to everyone working there because they are working very hard. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. Also, we would get interesting questions. I'm sure you've heard those questions about does a ship generate its own electricity? Mm-hmm. And it's like, no, we have an extension cord that reaches, from Bermuda to Miami. Or does the staff live on board? It's like, no, we fly don't you hear the helicopters every morning? So there's a lot of misconceptions about cruise life as a crew member, but it is all encompassing your entire life. You're living and breathing with your team members 24/7. So,
and you really forge these incredible relationships because you are 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
That's what I found so incredible about it. But the other thing that it really taught me about hospitality is people will seek out an individual that they really connect with.
Yes.
And it taught me so much about hospitality because on land, if you can do that on a ship and can get somebody to come on board a ship for 7 days because of how great you are, think about what you can do on land.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. It's all about personality. I was somewhat introverted and somewhat shy when I got on board, and within 3 months,
that was
they
over.
cleared. I was part of the cruise show. Did you do the cruise show?
I did not.
So I did the cruise show, which again, it will crush you quickly if you can't do it. I used to, it was a lot of fun, a lot of espresso and alcohol involved. To get up on stage and do really silly skits. At the time when I was doing it, they're also highly inappropriate skits. And so I don't know if still today they still do the edgy
those.
stuff, but we had a lot of fun. And I'm glad iPhones didn't exist back then.
We call those the good old days, right?
The good old days,
However, I have to say, and then we'll move on. The Love Boat, like I still, every time I hear the theme song, like
absolutely,
it really touches me. But I was watching it in my room as I was preparing for this.
Yeah, I always say, when they say, what did you do? I'm like, well, I'm like Julie McCoy. And now people look at me like, who? I'm like, never mind. Yeah, I was a combination of Isaac, Doc, and Julie McCoy, I think. Yeah,
that's a good combination.
I think it's a good and who is the purser?
I can't remember names.
Yeah, anyway, I was kind of a combination of all of them.
Those are really good traits to have. So, well, I remember them, and I appreciate you humoring me there in the beginning, just to give a little background. But let's get into the really good stuff.
Yeah.
This property, the leadership you have, integrated into here, just the incredible culture. Even just being here in a day, you can see what an imprint that you have made here.
Oh, thanks.
And I would love, just give us a little, snippet. This property has so much history.
Yeah.
So kind of take us through the history, and then how did you come to be here at the ranch at Laguna?
Yeah, okay, so this will be 3 hours. But, the history here, I have to step back, because a lot of our storytelling starts with Western kind of culture, which starts in 1871. But really, it starts way before then with indigenous peoples who live here, the Ahachiman and Tongva tribes that have been here for 10,000 plus years. This location was never a residential location for them, but it was a meeting place. From what we understand, because there's a creek that runs through our property, and it kind of was a natural dividing line between different tribes, different families, and they would meet here on occasion and kind of talk about life going on and what's going on, who are those weird people in ships coming in, and so this has always been a gathering place. It's always been a place where people gathered, which is really special because you feel that when you're here. It's a very special location. And then in 1871, through the Homestead Act, the Thurston family, which is still present here in Laguna Beach, they named a couple schools after them. There's a street named after them. They came in, they homesteaded right off of our 4th fairway, and they built a small home, and they raised cattle. They grew watermelon, walnuts, and wild grapes here. Oh, wow. They sold the watermelons to beachgoers, because even in the 1870s, our beaches were very popular. Yeah. And so they would wagon those watermelon to the local beaches, sell them, and that's how they made their money. And then in the early 1900s, they bought more property in what is now downtown Laguna Beach, and they abandoned this property. It kind of sat for a long time. And then in the 1940s, the very back of the property, there was this grove of eucalyptus trees that the Thurstons had planted, because they needed to get the homestead deed, you had to plant a crop. And so watermelons didn't qualify, grapes and walnuts didn't qualify. Eucalyptus did, because they thought that they could use the lumber from the eucalyptus trees as railroad ties. And that's why you see pretty much all throughout California eucalyptus trees, which are not native to California.
No way.
Yeah, they're from Australia. And so, but it turned out eucalyptus trees are really bad for lumber, and they twist when they dry. Made horrible, but so the eucalyptus grove stayed. So there's this beautiful eucalyptus grove at the back of the property, and the Girl Scouts of the United States that were just starting out created a Girl Scout camp back there. And it was one of the very first Girl Scout camps in the United States. Elizabeth Bodden, the wife of the creator of the scouting programs, actually was here. We have a picture of her standing with some scouts in the 50s. And so it ran as a Girl Scout camp back there. And that's why we still call that area where our farm is Scout Camp. And then in the 1950s, the property was sold to a developer in Los Angeles, Bill Bryant, and he came in and built the golf course. Okay. There was no resort here, it was just a golf course. Laguna Beach was tiny, probably only 1,500 residents, but he just had the foresight to build a golf course in the middle of nowhere. So we have this beautiful 9-hole golf course. And then in 1960, the people that built the resort, Ben and Violet Brown, came in. We're sitting in their home, by the way, right now.
Beautiful.
This is a home they built in 1962, and now one of our suites. But they built the resort. And they built it just as you see it today. The footprint's identical. And it ran as the Aliso Creek Inn for decades and decades. And then in 2004, a large luxury hotel across the street. I won't mention their names, but the same company that owned that property owned this property. They bought it from Mrs. Brown. Mr. Brown had died in the 70s, and they had big plans to redevelop the property. And that was, like I said, 2004. They worked on that for about 8 years, and in 2008 rolled around, 2009, lovely real estate bubble kind of burst, and the finances of that didn't make any sense. And so they kind of just put it on hold. I joined the company in 2010 to kind of keep this property alive, just keep it running, keep it as a resort so it doesn't lose entitlements and permitting to be a resort and a golf course. And I came here, this place was dilapidated to say, at best. The golf course was always stunning. The golf course was beautiful. The hotel had been somewhat run into the ground, and it wasn't a place you'd probably find yourself looking to stay. And everyone who stayed here would always ask the same question is, why don't you just, and then dot, dot, dot. And I knew somebody someday was going to do something. I didn't know who. I thought it was, going to be maybe that hotel company. And then in 2013, they put it on the market and they sold it to a group of 3 local residents, not hoteliers. And so just 3 people who grew up in Laguna Beach. One of them, our managing partner, Mark Christie, he grew up here playing golf with his dad. And so they just wanted to preserve what they knew was so special. And to kind of give you some background of how little anyone really cared about the hotel, the minute this property came up for sale, it didn't go on the market. It was proposed that he purchase the property over a ping pong tournament at an area called Three Arch Bay here in Laguna Beach. And he was like, I'm in. And then he called his 2 friends and said, hey, we have the opportunity to purchase this property. And one of them said, oh, that's great. The golf course, yep. The clubhouse, yep. The restaurant, yep. And kind of paused, and he says, oh, and the hotel, and he goes, oh, there's a hotel? I didn't even know there was a hotel there. And so they had very little, knowledge of what was really here. And so in 2013, we sat down. I was fortunate enough to stay on with the new ownership.
Wow.
I might have bribed them with tacos and tequila, but I was lucky enough to stay. And then everything we did from then on, we kind of created the vision and started construction. We closed for about 2 years, shut down the property, rebuilt it from the ground up, keeping the existing footprint because it really does feel special when you're here. And so we didn't want to ruin that kind of vibe. But we took everything down to the sticks, everything down, wet and dry utilities, new roofs, new everything. So it would have been easier building new buildings.
Sure.
But we came up with this amazing luxury product, and then had to rebuild the brand and the positioning and build the team to where we have now an award-winning luxury resort in Laguna Beach.
Wow. What an incredible evolution.
Yeah.
And as you were saying, you could get a lot of people that would come in here and just level it.
Oh, yeah.
And it would be the same old brick and mortar that a lot. But to know that they preserve this history makes it even more special.
I think so, yeah.
Absolutely.
So does the community. Our community is famous for not supporting new things. The one thing they did support was this project. We had no opposition. Everyone wanted this project to work.
Oh, that's
Everyone.
nice.
So we involved the community in pretty much every aspect along the way with community meetings and showing people the drawings and our ideas. And then so it was very much a labor of love by the whole town.
So when you talk about sustainability, you guys are doing really what the market would now call regenerative.
Right.
But let's keep it simple, and I want to
Yep.
touch on that a little bit later. So, to go from A to Z isn't possible for most hoteliers. But, was there one thing that kind of set the trajectory? Was this intentional from the beginning? Was it kind of, building on things? How did you get to this point now?
It was very intentional, but we did build on it. because in 2013, I knew what a lot of people knew about sustainability, plastics, and the like, kind of your stereotypical hotel sustainability programs. Really, I knew very little beyond that. Towel reuse programs, plastic water bottles, and that was about it. And our ownership, Mark in particular, who I mentioned earlier, he's been part of the fabric of Laguna Beach since he was born in Pasadena, but at I think 3 months old, moved to Laguna Beach with his family. So Laguna Beach has a very kind of storied past in land preservation and keeping this a place that is very special and not overrun by development. And so there was a huge project in Laguna Beach that was, so we're surrounded by 22,000 acres of open space we call the Green Belt. A large part of that was owned at that in the I think the 70s and early 80s by a huge land development company, had all the rights to build homes, ready to go, bulldozers on property. The entire city came out, including our owner, who helped finance the opposition to that project, and they got the project stopped. Through this incredible grassroots, community-driven. They closed down the highways. One of our, she used to be our mayor. She actually handcuffed herself to a bulldozer, went to jail. Mark was out there. There were signs. They put up Brillo. Remember the Brill cream sign kind of deal, where it's like messaging as you came in and left Laguna Beach as to what do you want to see when you come in and out. And so that effort stopped the development of a large part of the open space around our property. And so that really inspired a lot of, so our town is very kind of rooted in environmental causes. From our ocean is a protected marine environment, so just like Monterey Bay, we have the same protections, and then the green space that surrounds the property. So our local citizens have, for generations, worked really tirelessly on making sure this place is protected. And so when we sat down to start envisioning what this property was, Mark made the comment is, I want to be as sustainable as possible. That's a very important part. And I'm like, let's go. And so over time, that just evolved into learning and meeting people in the industry and outside the industry. Most importantly, people who were not in the industry on the environmental side, is to say, what can we do that would be meaningful, that actually isn't marketing shtick or greenwashing, that would make a difference. And that's where we came up with most of the plans that we have now.
And probably make a real difference to where you are, to the place that you're in, right? It's not a cookie cutter framework.
No.
It doesn't mean that that isn't still impactful, but it's much more impactful if you're thinking about what does your local environment and community need.
Absolutely, and that's what I tell everybody, because now that we're doing this and I get to talk to people about sustainable hospitality, regenerative hospitality, it's always about what can you do where you are. And so we're really fortunate. Well, it's a blessing and a curse, because the responsibility is huge. So we see ourselves as stewards of this canyon. So we're not just operators of a resort, we're stewards of this special place, because this canyon is going to be here long after this hotel goes away, which I hope it never does. But it's a big responsibility.
Absolutely.
And so if you're in a small, say you have a small focused service hotel on, the 5 on the way to Barstow, you can still do things. Just find out what those things are that your community needs from you. Find out what's special or what's unique to your location, and just lean into that area. And so here we have plenty. So we have the natural resources, we have the water, we have the creek, we have the open space, and the community that is very engaged in what we're about and what we're doing.
So in a place like this, it's easier in the sense because you have that community momentum, and it's almost like you have to.
Yeah.
I have so many conversations these days where it's still looked at as a nice to have.
Right.
This is a twofold question. When you're talking to a GM that's, has barriers, budgetary barriers, upper management that just, is not allowing them to do that. What do you say to somebody like that that really wants to get involved but can't seem to figure out how to do it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's a good question, because I think that's the biggest barrier right now to moving the needle further.
Yeah.
But things are changing. So when I first started this kind of journey here at this property, it was way more expensive to operate in a sustainability manner, a sustainability kind of mindset. Things were more expensive. Disposable packaging that was sustainable, compostable, was very expensive. Aluminum water bottles at the time were somewhat novel. So it was a harder conversation back then, because it was more about convincing them to do the right thing because it's right for the environment, it's right for community, long term, it's going to be what is important. And so those that could do that were always encouraged to do that. But we have, again, the advantage of being an independent ownership. So we're not owned by public trust or REIT, or we don't have to necessarily articulate an ROI. That's what I would always, well, what's the ROI on changing to a aluminum water bottle rather than a plastic water bottle? I'm like, well, because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
That's your ROI. But now, flash forward to 2025, it is cheaper, actually. The items are to purchase are the same or less expensive, and you actually see more of a return on in the amount of use. And I'll give you a good example here is our room keys. So our room keys are these cute, round, ecologically sourced wood room keys, bamboo, logoed, and we made the switch. I think it's been about 6 years that we started using wooden room keys. And my concern at the time was actually financial.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we're going to do this, but this is probably where we're going to eat profit. It's going to hurt us because more people are going to take these keys. They're at the time a little more expensive to make, but because one classic old room key, they're little rectangles. That's
a
about
cent.
yeah. Well, it's expensive. It's over a penny each, and then actually they're like about 27 cents per key. But each one of those plastic room keys is about 6 water bottles worth of plastic. Oh. And we were seeing, no one returns the keys.
Yep.
They either go in the garbage, they take them home by accident. So we're seeing about 30,000 room keys disappear every year, and they're going into the landfill. That's a lot of plastic going into the waste stream, and that's just not cool. And so we switched over to the keys, and we saw immediately it was interesting because it was a psychological move. Because our guests, once they saw that key and they understood the story of the why, we didn't have to even tell them. It was just like, yeah, and they're like, oh, this is cool. Like, what's the story with this key? They wanted to know, like, how does this work? And so small, quick conversations at the front desk, everyone brings those room keys back. We don't have to purchase as many room keys as we did when we were plastic room keys, and now the pricing has come down. So the cost of a bamboo or ethically sourced wooden room key is on par with a plastic room key. So you're seeing that now adopted by more and more hotels around the world. So and then also technology has helped. So a lot of places don't even need a room key; you just use your phone. So that was a good example. Surfrider Foundation did a big study recently on the cost of sustainable products versus non-sustainable products in hotels and restaurants. And they quantified through some reports that are available that it is cheaper to operate in a sustainable manner. Yeah, and they've got case studies.
So I think it's a misconception up to this point because it did take a long time for that curve.
That just happened in the last year or so, that the curve kind of went down in our favor. So it is different now. But it was true. It was more expensive to be sustainable not that long ago, but that's just not the case anymore.
And I think that hotel, leadership and managers are typically so in the weeds, right? That they don't have the bandwidth to go and do that research.
Right. Yep.
So you've heard it here first. You don't have to research, just go buy the sustainable products. But there's great resources out there to find procurement.
Well, and also I'll say that your vendors, whether you're a part of a purchasing program or whatever. In the past, like I had to research, like literally get online and research and find out where these places were. Now all of the suppliers have alternates that are available. Literally, it's just ask your vendor for the product, and they'll have a dozen samples and examples.
And that's why these conversations are so important, because now, leadership like yourself and this hotel has done the work, and now others can kind of ride the coattails, if you will.
Well, I'll give you another example is Hilton and Marriott both committed to eliminating plastic water bottles from all their hotels worldwide. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of rooms soon. I think 2028 or so. Don't quote me on that date. It takes a while to unwind these agreements with bottlers, but that's a huge thing. That really moves the needle, and I don't think the big brands get enough credit for that. They kind of like, oh well, you're still a big abuser, that's just, but they're doing what they can. And it's very laudable, in my opinion.
And you're right, that changes supply chains.
It does.
I think when individual hotels think about, can I ask my supplier? No, that doesn't, I can see why that seems daunting. Yeah. But when you're talking about a big brand like that affecting the supply chain, then that changes it for everybody.
It does, yep.
Okay, so you mentioned, I want to switch gears real quick and talk about the tourist, the traveler, right? And you mentioned a little bit about behavior change.
Right.
In the beginning, it was kind of like, let's put signs everywhere and let's teach them, which, we had to figure out what was the best way to do that. But what is your feeling on the balance of responsibility? Is it the traveler's responsibility to choose, actively choose these kinds of organizations? Is it the hospitality industry? Is it both of ours? What is it?
It's collectively both. The consumer sentiment is definitely leaning towards sustainable choices. 5 years ago, a high-rated customer spending, over $500 a night for a room or more, they didn't list sustainability as an option when they're selecting a destination. It wasn't even on the top 10. Like, it's not a factor. We want service, we want the amenities, we want all the whatever. And now it's top 3. And that's a study that was done by Preferred Hotels and Resorts and also Virtuoso. And so those, this consumer through their own education and through knowledge and media bringing these stories to light has shifted that kind of that sentiment to where, and that's not everybody, but for the most part, people now either want it or they think you're doing it, and they're disappointed if you're not.
Yeah.
So they get here and you have, a plastic water bottle in the room, they're going to go, oh, that's kind of weird. Where in the past it wasn't weird. It was like, oh, great. But now it's like, oh, why do they have a plastic water bottle? It's only almost become the kind of that boiler moment of like, no, don't,
like a Saturday Night Live skit, I feel like.
Right, yeah.
Slow motion, what's going to be in the mini bar.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, I like that you said that. So let's, I think you mentioned it in the beginning. You used to teach scuba, right?
I did, yeah.
Yes. So what about that experience? Has that helped you in a leadership role? Are there things that you took away from that experience that have changed kind of your perception of how you lead through the world?
In a couple different ways. One, being in nature has a profound impact on, I think now it's even, proven through science that it can really impact how you feel about yourself, your mental state. And so having the kind of the blessing of being able to be in nature from an early age, I think has benefited me to being able to see things through the lens of where you are and appreciating the area and the spaces around you, whether it's above or below water. And I had the really great benefit working on cruise ships of diving in some of the best dive spots in the entire world, and also witnessing coral bleaching, witnessing pollution, witnessing bad practices in the different islands I went to, and noticing like, wow, that's really unfortunate to go to an island and see an entire area bleached out by sewage runoff.
Yeah.
And so that impacted me at a young age. But also, teaching scuba is, you learn as a scuba diver that in a moment of crises, you need to stop, breathe, and think. And so you stop, you make sure you're still breathing, and you think about your situation. You don't panic, you don't react quickly. And so that's how I try to, not always successfully, kind of frame anything that we do here in my career, is to look at situations when it comes up, as far as whether it's, a team member or guest, or, just environmental issues that come up, to stop, breathe, and think before acting, because that's going to save you every time.
Wow, that's a really good reminder for like any situation in life.
Anything in life,
You can apply it personal, a crisis, or professionally.
Yeah.
I love that. So then since we're talking about leadership, I know you're very involved in the hiring process.
Yes,
And
I interview everybody.
Which is very
employee.
rare.
Yep.
And you've said that if it's not a fit, if you don't feel, and I don't want to quote you, but I know you said something along those lines.
Right.
If it doesn't feel like a cultural fit, does that same sustainability ethos apply? Or do you look at it as this is an opportunity, to cultivate now another earth warrior, or whatever your mantra is? How do you balance those two?
Hospitality is driven by the heart.
Yeah.
And so somebody can have a lot of technical skills, all the right education, but if they don't have the heart for hospitality, they're not going to make it. And so it's not good for them, and it's not good for us, or our customers, or the fellow team members they're going to work with. And so on many occasions, I've final interview, and it's like, this person's just not, I call it the vibe check,
the vibe check.
Yeah.
That's what I read.
And so it's a little bit of a vibe check of are you going to like working here? Are you going to contribute to what we're doing from a hospitality ethos? And if they're not, then, we're not going to make that. Because every time we've done a desperation hire, it's like, we need that person, we need them tomorrow. And we kind of decide against our better judgment. Oh, this person, they'll figure it out. They don't. And they don't last very long, unfortunately. And I think most hospitality companies, whether it be airlines or hotels, restaurants, who hire that way, end up with a stronger culture focused on true hospitality.
Absolutely. So, all right. We're here in this valley, and until you have a chance to experience it, there is really a presence here.
Yeah.
There's a spiritual presence. I love that you brought up the indigenous culture, because regardless of where you are in the world, there is an indigenous culture, and I think we owe it to recognize that and honor it in however way we can. Then what kind of animal energy would you say you represent in the world?
I channel Muppet energy. So I could say like, hawk or eagle, but really
that would be the manly thing.
That would be the manly thing. I actually have a hawk tattoo.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you legitimately
can say that. But honestly, I'm like Gonzo from the Muppet Show. I'm a little crazy. Sometimes Kermit, Fozzie Bear, quite often when I'm telling jokes in the office, people laugh at, but I know it's really not funny. I'm more of a Muppet. But I think that's a fun way to live, right? That's like don't take yourself too seriously. Otherwise, this is like fool's errand when it comes to like pride and becoming a little too self-important. And I've grown up working for people who would consider themselves an eagle, the master, or a lion, master of their environment, and they're just ridiculous to work for. So I'm a Muppet.
I'm Miss Piggy every Halloween.
There you go. Okay.
I can relate to the Muppetry. we won't go on and on because that is not what this is about. But I love that because having fun. This is a serious conversation, right? And it's so important that we are doing this work, but especially to infuse that into your culture and your teams and your guests can feel that.
I hope so, because we're not rocket scientists. We're not emergency room physicians. A long time ago, I worked for Mirage Resorts, and Steve Wynn spoke to us at a big annual conference with all the team members there. And I remember he got up, and it was in a particularly hard time for the gaming industry. And so, especially on the casino side, people are a little down and stressed. And he got up and he said something I'll never forget. And this is coming from somebody who built an empire, right? And so he said, hey guys, I don't want you to forget that you're not emergency room physicians, that if we don't have a good day, no one dies here. Like, just somebody loses a little money or has a bad room experience. At the end of the day, everybody's okay, we're gonna be fine. And so, like, don't take this home with you. And so that stuck with me for an early part of my career. And it was important to hear that from somebody at that level, because that's how I see things here. It's like, yes, this is important. Yes, we have to drive revenue and profitability. Yes, we need to deliver amazing guest experiences and amazing employment experience. But honestly, like, this is fun. This is like, we're supposed to be having fun here, you know? And so I think when you kind of embody that spirit of making sure that this is fun and enjoyable, your guests do feel that. And your team members also feel that.
1,000%, yes. So we talked a little bit about sustainability, and then we peppered in regeneration. And I've been thinking a lot about this lately, because the industry, there are some segments and some geographic areas that are truly regenerative. This being one of them. But I appreciate the fact that you still use the word sustainability, and maybe branding is changing soon. I don't know, but I would love to know, you know, what your thought is on the two terms. I tend to think we're too premature to confuse the market. But I'd love to know what you think.
This is a hot topic, as you know. Everyone's talking about this right now, especially in our industry, because what is sustainable? You know, those of us who have now had a little bit of an education and a little further down the road in this world of sustainability, regenerative practices, meeting true scientists and people with PhDs, start to understand the true meaning behind these words. And so if you get caught up in the semantics of the words, then you start to question, like, what are we? Sustainable means keeping things the way they are. And so technically that's not what you want to do. We don't want to keep things the way they are. Regenerative, on the other hand, is the fact that you're constantly growing and creating new things. And with hospitality, that's just never really going to be true. Like, you can do that, and even the best, you know, these places that are like building schools and communities and financing entire communities that are my like aspirational like properties that are doing things that are beyond anything I could dream of. That's a version of regenerative. But, you know, flying somewhere to stay and vacation and then fly back home, that's never going to be regenerative. It just isn't. And so there's an aspect to that you can't get behind. So a new term will evolve. It won't be regenerative, and it won't be sustainability. What that is, I'm not sure. But right now, I think sustainability is still the term that most consumers understand, and they put a lot of like credence into it, and they appreciate it. And whether it's the right term or not, it's what it means to the consumer right now. So for now, it's sustainability, but it is something everyone's talking about, and we're just not sure the right term. But no one wants to be the first to change it, you know, because then it's like, what is that, you know?
And I will say, and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but I also like nature-based hospitality, because I think that's digestible. Somebody can say, oh, well, we're going somewhere that seems to be engrossed in nature and giving back. But anyway, we won't. So, okay, again, keeping on the theme of this canyon. How do you see guests, you know, because you've worked at many other hotels, so you can, of course, one hotel, regardless of where you are, is going to dictate a guest experience and the way they move through the property. But how do you see the guest interact with this property differently due to the fact that you're in this canyon?
Well, every property does have its unique place and where it is when it comes to the environment around it, the smells, the sensory inputs that guest is going to experience. A good example is a New York City hotel. You've got the streets, the sound of the streets, the smell of the food carts, the sandwiches in the bodegas, kind of that's what you kind of expect. And that's what you want, that waft of humanity coming up. Most of it, hopefully good. And then
halal, the waft of halal and sewer. I like that.
It just screams big city.
Yes.
But when you're here, California, when you say California to a lot of people, for somebody like myself who's born and raised in California, I don't want to say I take it for granted, but it's kind of like the smell of the ocean, the smell of the coastal sage scrub on our hills. I really don't notice it unless I leave and come back. And I'm like, oh, okay. I remember that. Because I still remember when I went to college in Arizona and coming back to come here to visit or to come home, coming through whatever canyon, and suddenly there's the ocean and that smell of the salinity of the beach, the seaweed, the hills. It's unique, and so we have to remember when our guests come here, they're sensing that smell, it's a big part of the experience. And our canyon is just, we're surrounded by sage and lemonade berry and lavender and flowers, and it has a unique scent. And then on top of that, we have 600-foot tall canyon walls that kind of are embracing you when you're here. And so you get a sense of calmness when you're here, of being protected. I see this big wall that's right behind us as kind of it feels like, for those of us who spend time in the water, whether it be surfing or paddleboarding or whatever, when those waves are right there, there's a sense of awe when you see that wave. And so that feels like a big wave just kind of looming over us in a positive way of just this incredible, and it does radiate coolness, it radiates heat, and then the sense, and then it attracts wildlife. And so, when our guests get here, we really want them to immediately see those canyon walls. We actually, one of the elements we changed is where the front entrance is now when you come to check in, that used to be obscured by these kind of covered pathways. So you could walk up to what is now the front desk and never see the canyon. And that was almost absurd. So
that is absurd.
We eliminated a lot of construction there, a lot of material, so that when our guests arrive, they just look up and it's right there in front of you to get that sense of awe, which I think is important.
And regardless of where you are, I think every hospitality GM, professional leader wants their guest immersed in whatever they're doing. I feel like that's exactly what you're saying.
Whether it be a city hotel or a rural hotel, a resort in nature, you want to embrace where you're at and take advantage of what's around you.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. Which almost is a sense to me that you want nature to really be the teacher here.
Yeah.
Versus, there's not a bunch of signage everywhere.
Right.
This is a little bit more of an obvious place, but still, you want them to just be kind of guided.
They're part of a story. And when they get here, there's a sense of relaxation once you hit the property. You don't need a lot of wayfaring signs to say, look at the hills, look at all of our sustainability, programs. That's just part of the experience they're having when they're here, rather than us educating them. Nature tells a story when they're here. Coming out on your patio in the morning, having a cup of coffee, just feeling this place is special. I learned a term recently that I think is really cool, is nature is our economy here. So, if we don't take care of that, everything falls to pieces.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it really, I think the misconception is that if you're in an urban area or if you're not in somewhere this abundant, that's not the case. But I think we're going to see unfortunate examples of that being the wrong conception.
Sure. You are, no matter, you could be in a large city, you're still in nature. And so, you have different responsibilities in a city hotel and different opportunities, obviously. But
Love
you
that.
still have a lot of opportunities to embrace where you are, and then you might have to reach a little further. Like say in Boston, you might do something to help the harbor and replenish that water.
Yes.
That amazing port and everything going on, or New York, or you could be inland and be in a town like, say, Fresno. Fresno gets a bad rap, but it's a beautiful town right underneath the Sierra Nevadas. And so take advantage of your proximity to that area. Just recognize it doesn't have to be, yes, I'm super fortunate that I'm in it. But you can be in proximity to these places, and you are, no matter where you are in the world, you're in proximity of something super special.
Yes.
And even your location could be super special with parks and rooftop gardens or opportunities to engage with the space you're in, right?
I think that's a good point. I think you just need to do a little digging.
It's complicated being in an environment
Yeah.
like this, and it's not just my property. Any property that's surrounded by nature has to deal with a lot of regulatory rules that loom over them. So you really have to become a land use manager. So that's a little different than just, sometimes I close my eyes and think, man, being in a city hotel would be a lot easier because you're not worried, but then you're worrying about other things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think you just shed light on something that I would not have perceived. I always thought the opposite. Oh, it's easier. And I think
Right.
that there's a lot of hoteliers out there that probably perceive it that way
Yeah.
too. But
Oh,
that's
sure.
such an interesting lens because it is more delicate, and you
Yeah.
do have to be much more conscious about what you're doing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so as we wrap, Kurt, what would something be that the 25-year-old Kurt would be surprised at today?
Wow, that's a good question. When I was about 15, I sat at my dad. My dad was, like I said, a woodworker, draftsman, furniture, fine woodworker. So he had a drafting table at the house. And so I sat one day at his drafting table and I drew kind of my dream kind of place. And it was a dock with a helicopter and a hotel and a restaurant. And I told my parents, like, this is like, my dream would be to own this someday. And then, so I think at 25, I probably still recalled that, but probably thought, at the time at 25, I was in Las Vegas working, and that's not gonna, but I'm here, I'm in Laguna Beach, near the
That's cool,
ocean,
full
with
circle.
boating nearby. We've had helicopters land on property many times. So I've kind of, I think my 25-year-old self would be like happy and surprised that kind of a version of that drawing came true.
And we have a deed to present to you. You're now the owner of, no, I'm just kidding. That's wonderful, though. It's nice to look back and see full circle moments, right?
Yeah, it is.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thanks.
That's something to really, behold and be proud of. And you can tell that you love what you do.
Yeah.
And the reason that this place operates the way it does is because of that care and that leadership. So, last question. Finish this sentence.
Okay.
The ranch exists because
Of amazing people.
love that.
Yeah, I think this place exists because of the community that we're in, the amazing community of Laguna, of engaged residents who love this place and have guided and mentored us, a group of hundreds and hundreds of team members that live and breathe this every day that make this happen, and an ownership group that supports what we do. So it's about the people. You can have gorgeous buildings, you can have amazing facilities. They're nothing without people in them that have hearts for hospitality. It makes all the difference. So
Agreed.
It's the people.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Well, we've got other, snippets we're going to touch on. You guys are doing so many things. There's no way we could cover them all.
I can't wait to show you some fun stuff coming up. Yeah.
And I would encourage everyone to go on your website. You talk in detail about every activation, everything that you're involved in. And I think it would be almost like a course. If a hotelier isn't engaged or wants to, elaborate on their involvement. They could go on and get ideas.
Well, and contact me. I'm an open book, and so I'm not protective of anything we do, and I'm super encouraging to anyone who wants to learn. The goal is that everyone does this, and so as much as they can in the environment they're in. So I'm open book. Call me. I'll talk your ear off.
And of course, they can find you on LinkedIn, right?
Oh yeah.
But you are a part of Beyond Green,
yes.
and that is an incredible partnership. And you talked about Surfrider. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. But Beyond Green is an incredible partnership.
I am so proud to be on. I'm on the advisory board with Beyond Green. We're one of the 5 founding properties. Beyond Green is a collection of about 67 properties around the world that are committed to sustainability in a significant way. You have to be recertified every 3 years. We just went through a recertification process. It's a 1-week certification inspection, so it's no joke.
Yep.
They're soil samples, looking at labels, talking to your team members to make sure that everybody understands what it is. It's a serious kind of recognition of your efforts and that you're really doing them. And so there's properties that have dropped off and lost their Beyond Green status. But that's part of Preferred Hotels and Resorts. They bought the Beyond Green brand about 5 years ago and created it. And so I give them a lot of credit for taking that step and being forward thinking in what sustainable hospitality is and what it means.
Yeah. Somebody had to do it, and they really took the lead on that.
They really did.
Yeah. Kurt, this has been such a pleasure.
Likewise.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you.
Everybody check out the Ranch at Laguna. You will learn so much, and make sure to come and stay.
Yeah, come and stay.
Yes,
yeah,
because between the spa, the canyon, the people, everything, the fat squirrels that have been running by, you've got it all. So thank you so much. Thanks
you.
everyone for tuning in. We'll see you next time.